Good evening and welcome to Blueprint Explosive Exclusive. I'm Madhavdas G.K. Viewers, 189 people were killed and more than 800 were injured in the 2006 Mumbai train bombings. But 19 years later, there's no one who's guilty. That's right, viewers. The Bombay High Court has acquitted all the 12 accused in the case who had been convicted in September 2015 by a special Makoka trial court. The High Court set aside the September 30th, 2015 judgment of the special Makoka court, finding no evidence to uphold the guilty verdict. Now, the court has cited lapses on part of the prosecution, saying that it failed to prove the case against the accused beyond reasonable doubt. Let's take a quick look at the prosecution lapses that the High Court has flagged. These are some of them. The first one is that there is an identical Part 1 and Part 2 of the confessional statements. They've also said that the confessional statements lack trustworthiness and completeness. They've further gone on to talk about the witnesses who say that they saw suspects, but they were not called for the identification parade. They've said the confessional statements vitiated because of torture inflicted. They've further gone on to add that when it comes to the CDRs in this particular case, the CDRs are key to establishing movement, but they were destroyed, which is what has been mentioned. Of course, the call detailed records could have established the location, but that was not done. Prosecution couldn't establish the offense beyond reasonable doubt is what the court has observed. Now, there's a political war of words that has also broken out over the verdict, with opposition blaming the NDA government in Maharashtra for what they call a shoddy job on part of the prosecution. Shiv Sena UBT has accused the state government of not taking the case seriously, while urging the Fadnavis government to challenge the decision in the Supreme Court.
ये बहुत ही दुखद है। उनको सजाए मौत देने के बजाय उनको बाइज्जत बरी कर दिया है। उससे नहीं था, उसमें लूप होल्स थे और ये हमारी, मैं मानती हूँ, ये गलती है राज्य सरकार की। राज्य सरकार ने इसको सीरियसली ना लेकर एक सीरियस आर्ग्यूमेंट प्रेजेंट नहीं किया, जिसकी वजह से ये वर्डिक्ट आया है। मैं उम्मीद करती हूँ कि इतने लोग मरे थे, शहीद हुए थे, 2006 से इंतजार कर रहे हैं न्याय का। न्यायपालिका में इंतजार कर उन पे विश्वास रखकर उन्होंने क्लोजर और जस्टिस की उम्मीद जो बनाए रखी थी, आज वो टूटी होगी। ये तो जले पे नमक डालने वाली बात हुई है। मैं उम्मीद करती हूँ इसको होम मिनिस्टर जो महाराष्ट्र के हैं, देवेंद्र फडणवीस, जो मुख्यमंत्री भी हैं, इस कोर्ट वर्डिक्ट को चैलेंज करेंगे।
I see every issue they politicize. How is it happens that the lower court has given such a serious punishment? One of them was the death sentence given to someone. Life sentence, sorry, not death sentence, life sentence was given to someone. Proofs were not given by then what the lawyer was doing, what the lawyer was doing, or the prosecutor was doing, appointed by the government. And the last 3 years, what has happened, let us know.
Meanwhile, Eknath Shinde's Shiv Sena has demanded answers from the opposition, saying that they were to blame for lapses in the investigation. BJP, on the other hand, called for the need to challenge the decision in the Supreme Court so that justice can be delivered to the victims.
जो मुंबई हाई कोर्ट ने जो रेलवे बॉम्ब ब्लास्ट के जो लोग हैं वो आज छूटे हैं, उसकी जांच बराबर नहीं की, उसी वजह से वो निर्दोष मुक्त हुए। तब कौन सी पार्टी थी, वहां कैसे इंक्वायरी होगी, उसका जवाब राहुल गांधी उन्होंने देना चाहिए। पहला उनसे इसका स्पष्टीकरण देने को बोलो।
बहुत दुख हुआ है, धक्का लगा है। एक लीगल और इन्वेस्टिगेशन एक्सपर्ट टीम की रचना हो, सुप्रीम कोर्ट में जाए, मुंबई के नागरिकों को न्याय मिलना चाहिए, आतंकवादियों को सजा मिलनी ही चाहिए।
Let's go across to Nilesh. Nilesh, now the big question is that will the matter be challenged before the Supreme Court? Many questions as to whether that will actually happen now, because that is also a key demand coming in from different quarters, politically speaking. Well, I think we've lost that audio there with Nilesh. We'll try and reconnect with him. And in fact, let's take this across to our guest now, because clearly this is one key demand. But at the moment, many questions that need to be answered, because at the end of the day, if in such a huge case where there are over 180 persons killed, why are we not able to secure a conviction after so many decades? That's a question that many have to ask. Let's take this across to Krishna Hegde, spokesperson of Shiv Sena. PK Jain is former IPS joining us. Prabhakar Mishra joining us at the moment is a victim. We also have Hasmukh Solanki, who's a victim's son. Advocate Rizwan Siddiqui is an advocate joining us, as well as Anish Gawande, national spokesperson of the NCP Sharad Pawar faction. Krishna Hegde, coming to you first. What exactly has happened in this case is what the opposition is asking. Why has the government not been able to secure a conviction, despite the fact that the Makoka court granted this over a decade ago? In 2015 is when we heard of that conviction happen. Now the High Court has blown holes through the entire prosecution, saying that there are several lapses on part of the investigation, and this is not a case which has been proved beyond reasonable doubt.
Madhav, I'm totally shocked because this is one of the biggest terrorist attack on India. And like you said, 189 people lost their lives and over 824 were injured and maimed. And over that, everyone was scot-free. So who killed them? Who planted the bombs? Who are the perpetrators? And who are the accomplices of the people who are the part of the crime? So I'm totally shocked. And I blame it totally on the UPA government, who have not put in the papers, who have not given the proof, and who have let these people go scot-free. And I'm sure the government in Maharashtra, under the leadership of Honorable Chief Minister Devendra Fadnavis ji, is going to appeal in the Supreme Court. We should get in more papers, more proof, more substance, and challenge this verdict of the High Court, because the people of Mumbai need justice. And I think that justice has to be delivered in such a heinous crime on India and on Indian soil. But let me tell you, it is the Congress again who have been part and parcel of this. If they had filed the papers properly in the several courts earlier, I'm sure this would not have come to be. And therefore, I'm extremely shocked at this verdict of the High Court.
Let me come in. Let me bring in Anish Gawande. Anish Gawande, if the previous regime of the Congress had filed its papers correctly, and of course they are your ally, and you have been part of previous regimes as well, your party has been part of the previous governments, the allegation coming in very specifically from Mr. Krishna Hegde, spokesperson of Shiv Sena, is that had the paperwork happened as per procedure, at that point of time, things would not have come to such a pass as far as the High Court is concerned. Your response, Anish?
Madhav, to begin with, as I have reiterated on your show multiple times before, national security is not a matter for national television. It is incredibly unfortunate. Just a few months ago, we were on this show and we were talking about the Tahavur Rana case. If in the Tahavur Rana case, the BJP can take credit for an investigation initiated by the UPA, then with what face can the BJP and its allies now blame the UPA for not doing the legwork necessary to secure convictions in this case? You either have to acknowledge that the Mumbai police and the ATS are a failed institution because they didn't do their job properly, or you have to say that you did not do your job as the prosecution correctly. You cannot have your cake and eat it too. I am someone who believes very firmly in the Mumbai police. We have Mr. Jain here, he's a senior police officer. There are processes in place. It is not about which government is in power. I think, unfortunately, the BJP and its allies have forgotten that there used to be an India where our institutions were independent, where police authorities carried out these investigations as a matter of national security, not party politics. And finally, I want to add, Madhav, that in this country, we do not try by media. The Bombay High Court is an equally respected institution. Its verdict needs to be taken seriously. I sincerely hope that the government will appeal this case in the higher courts. But if it does turn out that these convicts were indeed not guilty, then we must reopen this investigation, not according to party politics, but as a matter of national priority.
Well, absolutely. You know, the point is that irrespective of political parties, the point is there are serious questions on the probe that have been raised. And let me bring in P.K. Jain, who's a former IPS officer. Mr. Jain, I want you to come in on this, because whatever the court has observed on part of the prosecution, it does not make the prosecutors look very good, because they are talking about how witnesses, who are part of the entire proceedings, they were not made to participate in an identification parade, and they were not even called to testify. Some of the eyewitnesses in this matter. They're also saying that, several lapses such as the statements are identical. Now, how can that be the case? Because the court has taken the allegation of torture within custody very seriously. P.K. Jain.
Madhav, good evening. Thank you so much for having me here. Let me, make a few statements. Mumbai police, this is not the only case which has been investigated by Mumbai police. There are n number of cases which have been investigated and have resulted into conviction. This particular case also resulted into conviction at the trial stage. A trial court goes into much more details than the high courts ever go into. Now, the trial court, after a long gap of 9 or 10 years, they pronounced a certain 12 persons guilty as charged. And punishment were pronounced on them from death to life sentence. Now, the case came in the High Court for appeal, and there the entire judgment has been overturned, and now everybody has been acquitted. I'm shocked. In fact, it's a matter of concern for all of us that at the trial stage, if somebody has been found guilty, there has to have some evidence on record to prove them so. And incidentally, the death sentence is given only in the rarest of rare cases. So that means there was enough evidence. Now, whatever the High Court has stated, that judgment has to be gone into in detail, and the government will have to go in appeal to the Supreme Court for overturning this particular judgment. At the same time, as Mr. Gawande has very rightly mentioned, this issue should not be politicized as to who investigate, who was the government which was the government in charge. Whichever government is in charge, I can dare say, and I can vouch for it, that the police officers who are looking into and carrying on investigation and are being supervised absolutely professionally, especially in cases like this, where hundreds of lives have been lost and hundreds of lives have been injured.
Well, Mr.
So
Jain, I will only say that, for a country where 189 people have died, we are not even able to secure a conviction. That speaks volumes of the complete collapse and failure of our lawyers, our legal system, our criminal system, the police. Everyone should be hanging their heads in shame that this is how we treat terrorists in this country. We are not even able to secure convictions, and it doesn't matter whether it's the policeman who didn't do the job right, whether it's the courts, whoever it may be. We are not getting into that. What kind of a nation is this, where we have no justice, where 189 people die? And I want to bring in Advocate Rizwan Siddiqui in this. Rizwan Siddiqui, end of the day, it does not matter.
You said that certain witnesses who were not brought into the TIP. Now, let me tell you, there are hundreds of witnesses in such cases. There are a sample of witnesses who are put up in the court and who can explain the entire happenings and whatever has transpired very clearly in the court, which was done.
No, but this is for the court to look into, or the prosecutors to convince the court, sir. And it is not that only one lapse has been pointed out. There are multiple lapses which the court is speaking of. I am not sitting in judgment of whether the court has done its job right or wrong, or whether the prosecutors have done their job rightly or wrongly. At the moment, the court has raised questions of the prosecution. The larger issue is, what about those families who've lost their loved ones and near and dear ones? Advocate Rizwan Siddiqui, many are going to question what kind of justice system do we have? Because this appears to be a complete mockery. After 189 people die, we cannot find out who is responsible. We cannot convict anyone. What's going on?
See, if you look at the entire case, the way I look at it as an officer of the court, as an advocate, if you look at the number of advocates who are representing the state in this particular matter and the number of cases which were clubbed together in appeal, and when the High Court looked into everything meaning the entire trial which was carried out by the trial court, and dug into the details of the entire matter, and the prosecution then failed to bring about the case the way it's supposed to be brought out. Therefore, the High Court overturned the order of the trial court. If you look at a 650-page judgment, the judgment has been indexed and has been dug into detail. Every detail has been given into the judgment. Unfortunately, it was a 650-page judgment. I could not read through the whole thing. Just took a glance at the judgment, and the judgment quite correctly reveals that the prosecution has failed at multiple stages. And I can understand the emotions of the people. I can understand everything. But unfortunately, the courts have to deliver justice through a justice delivery system, that is through evidences. And if the evidences were not brought out the way they were supposed to be brought out by the prosecution, then it is a complete failure on the part of the prosecution. It is a complete failure on the part of the state. It is a complete failure on the part of the state to appoint the correct lawyers who could not bring out the case properly and correctly the way the division bench wanted it to be. The High Court, it's a division bench which passed the order. So if you look at the case, if you look at the way the case has been looked into by the judges were not with a biased mind. They were not looking at politics here. They were not looking at political parties. They were looking at the evidences which were supposed to be brought in correctly by the advocates. And the advocates were appointed by the state. Now, the advocates could have been brought in as a special public prosecutor. I do not understand why we had so many advocates from the state and none of them could convince the High Court that the prosecution had a good case for conviction, so that the conviction order should not have been overturned. But if you look at the lacunas and if you look at the loopholes and if you look at the way the entire judgment is tearing into the trial court, the trial which was conducted by the trial court, it clearly shows that there was, not enough evidence. And even in any event, if you look at the criminal justice system in India and even otherwise, it is the accused who's always at a very pedestal. So understanding.
No, but all these explanations are fine, sir. But let's listen to a person, Mr. Prabhakar Mishra, who's actually a victim of this blast. Prabhakar Mishra ji, क्या कहना चाहेंगे? What would you like to say to all those? We have representatives of political parties, we have a former IPS officer, we have a lawyer on the panel. The point is that the system has collectively failed today. आप और आपके जैसे जो बाकी परिवार हैं, जो victims हैं इस तरह के blast के, जो आप देखते हैं कि सारे accused बरी हो गए, nobody is being convicted. What does that? How does that make you feel regarding our entire and your confidence in our criminal judicial system?
Okay, मुझे ऐसा लगता है जब 11 जुलाई 2006 को मैं इंजर्ड हुआ, बुरी तरह से घायल, डेड बॉडी के बीच में से मुझे निकाला गया ट्रेन के बाहर, और बाहर निकल करके मुझे लगा चारों तरफ आइदर डेड बॉडी या हाईली इंजर्ड पीपल, हमको निकाला गया। तो जितना हादसा दुख तब हुआ था और वो झेलते झेलते उसके सर्विस से मैं 3 साल बाद रिटायर हो गया। अफेक्ट हुआ, प्रभावित हुआ मेरा अर्निंग, प्राइवेट कोचिंग, बच्चों को पढ़ाने का काम करता था एज मैथ टीचर, मैं उनकी बातें सुन नहीं पाता था, तो प्राइवेट कोचिंग भी अफेक्ट हुआ। अब आज हर साल 11 जुलाई जब आती है तो मुझे वो मंजर याद आता है, वो याद आता है। और ये जजमेंट जान के सुन के, पहला जजमेंट हुआ कि उनको कन्विक्ट हो गई है, किसी को फांसी हुई है, किसी को सज़ा हुई है, लेकिन उसके बाद वाले कोर्ट ने सबको छोड़ दिया, सबको बरी कर दिया। हम जैसे लोगों जो उम्मीद करते थे न्यायपालिका से, गवर्नमेंट से, पुलिस से, उस भावना को बहुत गहरी ठेस पहुंची है। अब क्या बच गया? यह एक और कोर्ट बची है, उससे कुछ उम्मीद लगाई जा सकती है, लेकिन एट द सेम टाइम ऐसा विचार है, ऐसा क्यों हो रहा है? बड़े बड़े अपराधी, बड़े बड़े वकील, बड़े बड़े लीगल एड उनको मिलती है, उनको इतना पैसा खर्च किया जाता है उनके ऊपर, और लास्टली जा करके वो छूट जाते हैं।
Absolutely. Let me bring in some of our panelists on this. Krishna Hegde, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter what opposition parties there in Maharashtra are saying. What answer will you give to this victim? Because he's saying that it is a miscarriage of justice. That there was some sense of closure when the trial court, Makoka court gave its order. But today he is shattered. And visibly so.
And totally, Mr. Prabhakar needs his justice. So do thousands of affected people in this case. And so does Mumbai and India. And it's appalling and shocking that the High Court has delivered such a judgment. I can understand what Mr. Siddiqui said, Rizwanji said, that the court looks into all the facts and figures. But if a lower court has given a judgment like that, and now the higher court is saying something else, I think we need, as a state, there is no politics involved. There is no party involved. As a nation, we need to go into the crux of the matter. We need to appeal before the...
No, but Mr. Hegde, I'm not getting into the politics of it. The point is, every government is the one that sends in the prosecutors, whether it's from the investigation point of view or those who plead before the court. Now, on those two counts, if the government has failed to convince the court, then there are going to be questions asked, is it not?
No, why was it that the Mokoka court was convinced and why was the High Court not convinced? Why did the Mokoka court give a death sentence to so many people and a life imprisonment to so many people, and one died while he was serving his term out of the 12 accused? And why is this overturn of judgment in the High Court? Obviously, if the lower court has given its judgment and we have to appeal to the Supreme Court to give justice to the people. And therefore,
No, sir, you have to tell us why.
Mr.
I mean, you have to explain to the people. It's not about me asking you or anything like that. What will you explain to these victims? It's all very well to say that what happened. But the point is that people are demanding answers. What kind of a system do we have if after such a terrorist attack we are not able to convict the accused?
Madhav, I would say this is a failure. It is a failure on part of the prosecution, and therefore I think we need a new team, or whoever is responsible. We have to get in a new team. We need to get in more substance. We need to get in more proof, and we have to see that this decision of the High Court is overturned and the Supreme Court gives justice to the people of India.
Anish Gawande, the matter will be appealed before the Supreme Court. Are you satisfied?
Madhav, I am not satisfied for one simple reason. One, Krishna Hegde ji is a mature political leader and has shown great restraint, unlike his party MPs. What is going on when Naresh Maske makes the kinds of allegations he does? When the BJP leaders like Kirit Somaiya make the kinds of statements they do? They take credit for the Makoka court verdict, but wash their hands off of this verdict. So, Madhav, the rot runs deeper, right? You have to remember that special public prosecutors, solicitor generals, advocate generals are political appointees. Unlike the police force, which is an IPS officer-led institution, which is recruited through the UPSC examination, your legal team defending the government is selected by the government of the day. Now, when this government has repeated blots to its name, from the Badlapur case to the Pune Porsche case, to something as heinous as the 2006 Mumbai train blast. This is not just a question of justice being denied, but of the complete failure of the government to have any level of competence. This is an incompetence that we are seeing in this case. So we must know who is going to defend the government at the Supreme Court. Are they going to actually be able to put up a spirited defense? If not, they should give this to the state government at this point. And the central government should take action because the state government has failed to protect the citizens of Mumbai today.
All right, let me bring in Mr. P.K. Jain on this. Mr. P.K. Jain, the question being asked is this, that normally we see the precedent of matters when they appeal before a higher court, they tend to be more lenient and they tend to give more relief to those who are accused in any case. In this particular case, what's the hope then that the Supreme Court will actually intervene and, give a harsh punishment? Because already we've seen the High Court completely acquit these individuals. Is there any possibility in your mind that the Supreme Court might actually undo this?
See, Madhav, there are n number of instances where the Supreme Court has overturned the judgment given by the High Courts. So in this case also, if a cogent case is made out, the government will have to go through the judgment very, very carefully and find out where all the High Court has erred or appear to have erred. And then they have to make out a strong case and present it before the Supreme Court. I'm sure that the kind of evidence that has been presented in the court, it cannot be a clean acquittal for all the 12 accused who were convicted by the lower court, by the trial court. So I'm very hopeful that in this case also, there will be, if the case is presented properly, there'll be initially a stay on the judgment of the High Court, and then the Supreme Court will take its own call. So, as I said, the case has to be presented properly before the Supreme Court.
Rizwan Siddiqui, are you as optimistic from the Supreme Court in terms of what we can expect as an outcome?
Well, I have not gone through the entire judgment of 650 pages, but look at it clearly indicates that yes, there must be a lot of scope even for the Supreme Court to intervene and to overturn the judgment of the High Court, because if you look at the trial, which went on for almost 9 years, if I'm not mistaken, clearly brought out a lot of substance. But unfortunately, it was not the way it was supposed to be. The presentation was not the way it was supposed to be presented. So therefore, because of the lacunas, the High Court overturned the judgment. But I'm sure that the Supreme Court may look deeper into this and may pass a judgment overturning the judgment of the High Court also. But we cannot say for sure. Let us see. Let us wait and watch.
मिश्रा जी, लास्ट 30 सेकंड्स में आपकी क्या अपील होगी सरकारों से, केंद्र सरकार और राज्य सरकार से? 30 सेकंड्स सर.
केंद्र सरकार से ये अपील है, जो भी इसमें कमी पाई गई है उनको दूर करें और जल्दी से जल्दी रियल विक्टिम, रियल क्रिमिनल को पकड़े, नहीं तो वो फिर से ऐसा ही करते रहेंगे इन फ्यूचर.
All right. So will the governments respectively intervene? Will the matter be appealed before the Supreme Court? Many such questions that still exist. But certainly for all Indians and for all Indians who talk about unitedly taking on terror, this is certainly a huge setback. We certainly don't expect that after so many decades, this is the kind of outcome that comes as far as a landmark case such as this, a terror attack in which 189 Indians lost their lives. Is this the kind of system that we will have? And how will India ever provide deterrence for terrorism if this is the kind of legal outcomes that we are going to produce? It's collectively an important question that all political parties and all citizens need to address. Krishna Hegde, PK Jain, Prabhakar Mishra, as well as Rizwan Siddiqui and Anish Gawande, thanks so much for joining us this evening.